Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session, which is on XAT exam day attempting strategy. This is a session brought to you by me, Nilanjan Dutta, and XAT alumnus. This is a brief about myself, and I wanted to inform all of you about all you that aspirants about the all important Unacademy Plus decision making course. Decision making course, the next session is tonight, Wednesday, 1st Jan at 10 pm. So do make sure that before tonight, 1st January 10 pm, all you think subscribe so you can attend all the sessions as part of the Unacademy Plus XAT decision making course, which is the plus course on Unacademy Plus. To be a part of these sessions, you need to be subscribed to Unacademy Plus. You can use the discount code Nilanjan Dutta while subscribing, or you can alternately use the code Nilanjan.YT, where YT stands for YouTube, while subscribing to get the Unacademy Plus subscription at the best possible discounts. Remember, the XAT decision making is the most score booster section in XAT 2020. And what better than getting mentored by an XAT alumnus, where we'll be looking at the entire spectrum of decision making, ethical dilemmas, quantitative DM, analytical DM, including the best of tips and tricks to master how you can solve more questions and sets in less time and yet have a very high accuracy rate. So do make sure all of you subscribe to Unacademy Plus. You have the following subscription options. The 6 months is the most ideal, given that we have GDPI courses launched as well as part of the same Unacademy Plus subscription. So you're going for a 6 months, you not only get XAT as well as the other MB exams, but you also get the GDPI as well. And in case you're looking at CAT-20, then the 12-month subscription would be the most useful option. Remember, irrespective of which plan you go for, use the discount code Nilanjan Dutta, or you use the discount code Nilanjan.YT, you'll get the subscription at an even more cheaper price than the prices quoted herein. As part of the subscription, along with XAT decision making, we also have the XAT QADI score booster workshops as well. So how do you get a discount? So here, after you choose the subscription plan, either the 6-month or 12-month plan, here in the referral code section, you enter the code Nilanjan Dutta or Nilanjan.YT, and then you click on apply. You'll see the code apply successfully. The price will reduce here, and you can check out. Remember, there is no space for the Nilanjan and Dutta in the discount code. Alternatively, you can always use the code Nilanjan.YT, where YT stands for initials of YouTube. So 6 months is what if you're looking at till the end of the GDPR season. If you're looking at this year, otherwise the 12-month subscription plan. So now let's get started with what should be your XAT exam day attempting strategy be like. So let's first look at the exam format and then look at how do you go about the time front. So you have 74 odd questions in the first section, and you have 25 GK questions in the second question. So you have a breakup of 165 plus 15 minutes. So how do you utilize the 165 minutes? Ideally, what you should be doing is first go into 50-minute slots for each of these sections. What you can do is break these 15-minute slots into 25 minutes, two sub-slots, just to ensure that you're not doing one particular section for too long. Break it into 25 minutes, two sub-slots for each section. So 50 minutes, 50, 50, 50, that is a total of 150 minutes exhausted. So basically 6 slots of 25 minutes. Now, decision making has 21 questions, which means you can complete all 21 questions in 50 minutes. Approximately, all you need to do is keep a check of an upper limit of 2.5 minutes per question while solving. So basically what you do is attempt in a linear sequence. Attempt a linear sequence, keep a checkpoint of 15, 30, 45 minutes. At the end of 15 minutes, should have been done with 6 plus, 30 minutes, done with 12 plus, 45 minutes, done with 18 plus, preferably by 50 minutes, you should be done with the entire decision making section. In VARC, the good thing is you have a lot of VA questions, and the best thing about VA is that it is not time consuming. So approximately at the end of 50 minutes, what you should be able to do is all VA plus N-1 RC, which means all RC is done except for one RC, and all VA done in the 50 minutes. Finally, you have the QA DI section where you have 27 questions for 50 minutes. So in the QADI section, the ideal way of attempting is 2 minutes per question. Should automatically means you would have been done with around 24-25 questions in 27 minutes. So possibly you will have one DI set remaining. So basically at the end of 150 minutes, you would have been done with decision making completely, one RC left and one DI left. So at the end of 150 minutes, you would be left with another additional 15 minutes. So what do you do in this 15 minutes? In these 15 minutes, first you start with a DI set, transfer the DI set in 7 to 8 minutes, and then whatever time remaining, 6-7 minutes or 7-8 minutes, try and take for that one last RC. In the last RC, do not read the passage first, go into the questions first, and after reading the questions, then only go back onto the passage. Remember, you've got to maximize your number of attempts with minimum effort. I see Vivek asking, is there any negative marking in the GK section? In the GK section, there is no negative marking. So all you need to do is, every question you look at, just flip questions one by one, but mark every question, some answer or the other for GK. So whichever question you know, remember GK has 25 questions, only 15 minutes. It's a very straightforward thing. You know the answer, you mark the answer. You do not know the answer, mark the most likely possible answer, because there's no negatives in the GK section. However, for the regular paper, the negative marking is as follows: 1/4 of the allotted marks in that question, and candidates have an option of not attempting, but in case they do not attempt, they get 0.1 deducted after every 8 unattempts. So what do? What you should be doing is, since there is negative marking of +1 and minus 0.25, with a minus 0.1 if you do not attempt, it's always better to attempt, because the additional negative is only minus 0.5, but there's a +1 associated. So every MCQ question should be attempted. Wherever it is a theta question in quants only, right, this comes in. Wherever there's a theta question and there is a negative marking associated with it, in that case you can afford to not attempt, because remember, under 800 attempts there is no negative marking, and remember, in theta questions the chance of getting it right by blindly marking an answer is very less. Whereas in MCQ, given a 4:1 ratio, it's always likely you'll get it more right than wrong. So all MCQ questions have to be attempted. It doesn't matter whether you know how to answer or not. Theta questions you can afford to not attempt, because unnecessarily you'll fetch yourself in negative marking, whereas if you do not attempt theta, there's no negative marking. Remember, 0.1 deducted after 800 attempts. So theta questions is anywhere 3 or 4 in number, so that will not affect your scores. If for GK, attempt everything and there is no negative marking whatsoever for GK. The time breakup they suggested is as follows: 50, 50, 50. That is 6 slots of 25 minutes each. And then at the end, you should be having 1 DI and 1 RC left. You've got to take 7-8 minutes for each of them to complete it. Any questions thus far on the exam day attempting strategy? So let us go section by section and then look at the cutoffs. Omkar. So in the first section, you have the reading comprehension. Here you tend to sometimes have a poem RC, which is different from the traditional RCs that you do in CAT. Remember, do not treat poem RC as anything different. It's exactly similar, because remember, ultimately what matters is not the passage, but the questions and the options. So focus on the question options rather than worrying too much for where is the poem RC versus a traditional RC. But remember, other than one RC, all the RC questions should have been done in those first 50 minutes. But your focus of attempts should be on all VA questions. Why? Because they end up taking less time. Things like vocabs, analogy-based questions, fill in the blanks, grammar-based questions, sentence correction, they end up taking a lot less time. The only question which might take a bit of time is critical reasoning, which is an important topic for XAT as well as para jumbles. These two end up taking a bit of time. The rest of them, there's not much reading time involved, so you can speed through them quite fast, and that is why the VA portion is very scoring. Make sure you revise your grammar, your parts of speech, pronunciations, synonyms, antonyms, all of that is very well rehearsed. RCs, yes, the RC passages are a bit lengthy and time consuming. A number of questions will sometimes are pretty less. But remember this, your marks are going to be coming in less time from these all VA. So focus on this all VA. Even if you not attempt something, RC is the only thing that you can avoid. The rest should be attempted. A good attempt is all 26. Because remember, you have adequate time to attempt all. In VA, maintaining a high accuracy is going to be a little difficult. So focusing on attempting everything is very important. And given there's a +1 -0.25 marking scheme, and there's also negative if you do not attempt, make sure that you're attempting all questions in VARC. Next one, decision making. Here as I already said, you expect to attempt all 21 in 50 minutes. The best thing about this section is it's a big relief for all of you who are not good with numbers, because unlike in CAT where you have a second section in DILR to deal with, this is a much more verbal relay type section. Especially those who are not good with numbers, avoid quantitative decision making and focus more on attempting situational decision making, analytical decision making, and ethical dilemma based decisions. Avoid quantitative decision making. If you're good in numbers as well, then you can attempt both comfortably. Again, attempt in linear sequence decision making. In the quantitative decision making, do not focus too much on unnecessary calculations. Remember, the objective is not to do unnecessary calculations, but instead to identify what are the minimum calculation required to be able to come to a decision. So that should always be your focal point. Anyways, for decision making, we are having the decision making live classes. The next session is tonight, Wednesday, 10 p.m. That's the 1st of Jan. So do make sure if you're attending these sessions, because here we are going through the entire spectrum of decision making, ethical dilemmas, quantitative DM, analytical DM, everything. So do make sure you're attending these sessions. These are being conducted by me and XRI alumnus. We're going through all the question solving approach and the tips and tricks. It's available on Unacademy Plus. Discount code Nilanjan Dutta while subscribing. Finally, we'll move on to the QADI section. As I said in the initial 50 minutes, look to attempt around 24 to 25 questions. So basically, one DI set. This should be attempted in that last 7-8 minutes extra period that you have for QADI, as well as 7-8 minutes that you have for VARC. In the QADI 7 and 8 minutes, you should be able to attempt that extra QADI set. Most important topic is always going to be arithmetic, followed by geometry, followed by the others. There are also a few data sufficiency questions, so do make sure that you are practicing a bit of data sufficiency based question, because that is important for XAT. You usually get at least a few data sufficiency questions as well. Preferably attempt more of QA, because the problem with DI is in case the DI set is difficult, you might end up wasting quite a bit of time in the DI set, which might affect your net score. Because remember, the weightage of all the questions are the same. So you've got to attempt those questions first, which involve less time. In XAT DI, it is not so calculation intensive. Fortunately, it's not much calculation intensive. It is more of interpretation based. So do make sure that you're practicing how to interpret what exactly the data is saying in a particular DI set. Overall, you should be ideally attempting all 27. At max, you can leave the theta questions, those which involve negative marking. You can leave them because you are allowed to leave up to 8 questions without any penalty. So just check if the theta question negative marking or not. If you don't have negative marking, then it's fine. If they have negative marking, then avoid attempting them. Keeping in mind that QADI has the highest weightage, number of questions is the highest in QADI. We have the QADI Score Booster workshops that are happening. It's part of the Unacademy Plus subscription. So do make sure if you're attending each of the QADI workshops that are happening, where we are looking at the no pen paper, 30 seconds to 1 minute approaches in QADI. Most of us have seen how all those who attended the CAT Score Booster QADI sessions had a huge advantage of around 20-25 plus marks in the quant section in CAT, and it's important that you do that same in XAT to give yourself the 5 to 7 marks extra score within the stipulated time. So make sure you're mastering the 30 seconds to 1 minute approaches to QADI by being a part of the Unacademy Plus live classes over this last 1 week to XAT 2020. The QADI course, the workshop we conducted by Minextra alumnus. You're looking at the entire spectrum of quants and DI for XAT. You know the reasons why the QADI course, the must join for all of you. You can use the discount code Nilanjan Dutta while subscribing to the Unacademy Plus subscription, or you can use the code Nilanjan.YT while subscribing to get all of these courses, the QADI course, the decision making course, as well as the GDPI courses, all of them available as part of the same subscription. Just choose the 6-month subscription while subscribing and use the code either Nilanjan Dutta and the space Nilanjan Dutta, or you can use the code Nilanjan.YT while subscribing. YT stands for initials of YouTube. The GK section, the best thing that you can do is prepare current affairs, the recent trends. Focus on economics, politics, and so on, and the other various key events that have happened in recent times. Current affairs is the most important part. The GK section, however, is not part of the GDPI call criteria process usually. Having said that, it's an important component of your conversion stage in the last few years. So do make sure that you're not taking it very lightly. But here, attempt all. It's a very clear message. Attempt all because there's no negative marking whatsoever in the GK section. So you attempt all 25. It's a very simple thing. You just look at a question, you know the answer, you mark it. You do not know the answer, you still mark something and move ahead. Some of the key things to remember: that does tend to throw up surprises with the section mix at times. Like for example, in that 2012, decision making was an entirely new section. In that 2011, they came up with differential marking scheme and so on. That too ranging from +1 to +5. So be prepared for surprise. Read the instruction sheet very carefully before you start with attempting the paper. First part is 165 minutes, second is 50 minutes. It's a stamina thing. Do not lose your focus after initial 165 minutes because the GK part is important for the final conversion stage. Don't worry too much about the weird marking of unattempted questions. Try and attempt all questions because that automatically takes away the negative marking for not attempting. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is percentile matters a lot in BM. So do not just look at the cutoff for last year for BM and assume that getting that score is enough, because in BM you usually require a 99 plus to convert your calls, whereas in HR you can convert at 96, 97 types as well. Since that has gone online, the papers usually been a little easier. So cutoffs in recent have been increasing, and all the more the QADI cutoffs have been higher in recent times compared to earlier years. Plus, the decision making section has become more familiar in recent time compared to what it was maybe 5-7 years back. The cutoffs have been increasing year on year in the recent times. So the XAT is not as difficult as what it was maybe in the previous decade. Start of the previous decade. This is some kind of an indicator on what the expected cutoff usually over the years has been like. Verbal is around the 7 mark you need for both BM and HR. Decision making also is around the 7 mark. Again, both of them are around the 80 percentile you need to get. QADI is where a big difference happens, because in BM you need a 90 percentile, in HR is around the 70 percentile mark. So you're requiring a score of around 10 to 12 for QADI and 7 to 9 for HR program. So this is something which, you see, the percentile cutoff and the score slightly fluctuate every year. So this is not sacrosanct for every year. It's an overall of what has been happening in trends. QADI, usually the cutoff for BM is around 3 marks more than HR. So do make sure that, especially looking at BM, you're looking at a higher percentile. Note, they might tell you that a 36 is good enough to, 36, 37 is good enough to get a call. But from a conversion standpoint, it won't be enough. Similarly for HR, 34, 35 might be good enough for a call, but it won't be enough. So ideally, if I look at a 37 and 35 in mind, I would say give yourself at least 3 marks maybe cushion. That is around 40 plus in BM and 37 plus in HR. HR maybe 2 marks cushion could be enough. BM 3 mark cushion. So 40 plus in BM and 37 plus in HR is something that you should be looking at. It will give you a good enough chance to convert. Because remember, as I said, ultimately you'll be requiring a 99 plus percentile to convert. GMP, the cutoffs are quite less, and there's not much sectional cutoff involved. XIMB and FPGN, they do have their sectional cutoffs. FPGN's overall cutoff is very similar to XAT BM's overall cutoff. For little lower cutoffs, you have Goa Institute of Management, IMT, Great Lakes, and so on, which are another set of good B schools that you have as options. So any questions on the cutoff part? So Omkar, if you're looking at HR, at least try and get 7 is the minimum, try and get 8 or 9 at least. If you're in QADI, at least 10 to try and get around 12. 12 and 9 are safe scores for BM and HR respectively. Omkar. Usually. Again, it can vary with sudden years. So overall score 40 plus is what is very good. The easiest way to get to 40 plus, that would be around, out of 27, you can, if you are attending 27 in QADI and you can get around 21 correct, 6 wrong. 6 wrong is acceptable. That is less than 80% accuracy, but still you can end up getting a raw score of around 19.5. So QADI, if you're getting anything above 19 plus, decision making, if you're attempting 21 and you're getting 14 correct and you're getting, let's say, 7 wrong, decision making and accuracy is a little difficult to maintain, you still end up getting 12 plus. And in verbal, if you're attempting all 26 and you're getting something like 17 correct, 9 wrong, you still end up getting something like 14 plus for sure. So basically it will add up to give you a score of 45 plus, which is definitely going to put you in a very, very good position to convert. This is something that you can look at. Ideal section to start with. Preferably, I would say start with the VA section. Preferably start with the VA section. I think Jim usually has this 85 kind of a thing, 80, 85 kind of a thing, 85 I think. So that would be what you would minimum require. So with that we come to the end of the session. Gentle reminder, the Unacademy Plus decision making course. The next session is tonight, Wednesday at 10 p.m. So do make sure you're attending each and every session live as part of that course. Use the discount code Nilanjan Dutta while subscribing. So in the CAT subscription plan, go for a 6-month plan if you're looking at MBA exam this year and mission this year. Otherwise, a 12-month plan if you're looking at CAT-20 as an option as well. Ultimately, doesn't matter 1 month, 3 months, 12 months, 6 months. If you use the discount code Nilanjan Dutta or use the code Nilanjan.YT, you'll get the subscription at an even cheaper price. That includes the Q&A workshop and the GDPI season as well. This is where you go and you enter the code for discounts. On that note, thank you everybody and happy learning.